Hello. Hopefully that title of the video got your attention. Those are 3 of the most frequently asked questions I think I get on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes there's like something in the air and I get them every hour on the hour. So I thought it would be important for us to, sorry, I'm getting notifications coming through while I'm making my video. I thought it would be important to kind of hop on here. Yesterday, thank you, Sonia, we finally had a member ask a question, and that's what I've been hoping for this whole time, is that people would start asking some questions. Well, let me recap. So obviously, we talked about inflammation for the last couple of days, and that's a huge topic. But one of the things that we talked about, in addition to the inflammation, is the food that we eat. And so from that, we had a question from Miss Sonia, and she was asking about, what is a carbohydrate? What should she eat? And I'm going to go super duper simple, basic 101 here to get this conversation started. But I want you all to know that everyone starts at a different place of knowledge. And depending on what your past history has been, maybe how your family liked to cook when you were growing up, maybe your lack of cooking skills, or sometimes amazing cooks can whip up some crazy awesome things like béarnaise sauce. Tastes delicious, not the best thing to eat all the time. So just depending on what you're used to, you may or may not have a true understanding of nutrition. And so for those of you that do, if this is a little bit basic for you, just suffer through it with the rest of us. If not, this will be really good for you guys. So as we're going through, if you have questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Oh, look, we got some shocking faces and some smiley faces and stuff. That's fun too. That always lets me know people are actually watching and listening. So, all right, so we're going to start off with the basics of nutrition. And when you think of nutrition, I want you to think about like your bank account. If you only have $100 in your bank account, you have $100 to spend. So if you spend more than $100, you're in trouble. Obviously when it comes to money, if you don't spend it all, I'm a saver, so I'm okay with that. But no matter what, that money has to do something, right? So if you don't spend all of your money, it's either going to go into savings or it's going to be, be held back for a big purchase, whether that's retirement or a boat, something like that. But either way, every little bit that you have is allocated to something, but you can't spend more than you have. Debt, right? Credit card and all that jazz. So I want you to think of food the same way. People say to me all the time, how many calories should I have? How much protein should I be eating? Well, that's not a cut and dry answer. For instance, I see right now that Dustin and Laura are watching. I can guarantee you they have 2 incredibly different profiles as far as age. Obviously, one's male, one's female. Who has more muscle? Who has more cardiovascular activity during the day? Who's sitting at what body fat percentage to even start with. There are so many things that are going to play into what you should eat and how much of it you should eat. So that's where something like I've said from the get-go, talking to someone, talking to like a dietitian or talking to a trainer, that's where something like that comes into play. And I am going to give you some information at the end of the video of an online service that I do actually really like, that is not very expensive, that if you don't have access to a trainer, it's a really good way to go. But that, one thing at a time. So let's focus on that. So, how many calories should I eat? Well, the other thing that depends on too is, what is your goal? Are you trying to lose body fat? Are you trying to gain muscle mass? Are you trying to maintain? Are you just, or are you sluggish during the day and you're trying to have better energy? There are so many things that calorie count will do. So let's focus on probably the 2 biggest ones that I hear all the time. I want to lose body fat, or I want to gain muscle mass. So to lose body fat or even maintain muscle mass, to lose body fat or even maintain body fat while building muscle, you have to look at your calories as, well, all the time, but fuel, right? So you need enough fuel to keep yourself running at top speed, to feed your body. Your muscles are tissue that is alive and breathing inside of your body. You've got to feed it. I mean, no, it doesn't have its own set of lungs, but you know what I mean. So you've got to feed your muscle, you've got to feed your body, but you don't want to overfeed it. People say all the time, pop is an excess calorie, or donuts are an excess calorie. They're not. They're maybe empty calories. They're not the most healthy calories, but they're not excess calories. Anything can be excess calories. You can eat too much chicken. You can eat too much fruit. if you're going over the calorie expenditure that your body requires, then that's excess, regardless of where it's coming from. So you can actually see people make not the best, healthiest choices with their calories, but still lose weight because they're staying under, or they're staying at the goal. Now, when you find someone who is actually going under their calorie requirements significantly, in an attempt to lose lots of weight quickly, that's when you start to see people lose a lot of weight, but they're not losing body fat. That's when they start to lose muscle. Their body starts to give away the muscle, because muscle requires energy, and if you're not feeding yourself enough to keep up that energy, your body will let some of that go. And I'm 42 now, and I need all the muscle that I have. And I'm not talking about bodybuilder, jacked up, ripped to shreds muscle. I'm talking about the muscle that when I trip and fall keeps me from breaking a bone. And I'm talking about the muscle that helps me get up out of my chair without moaning and groaning like an old lady. I'm talking about the muscle that helps me put dishes above, the counter and into the cabinet. So I'm not talking about like bodybuilder huge muscles. I'm talking about just maintaining the muscle mass that you have, and respecting the fact that it has to be fed. So how many calories should you eat? You need to eat enough calories to either lose body fat, which means you're going to have a base amount and you're going to reduce some, usually 300 to 500 a day, lower than what you would normally have. And don't anybody start doing math, because none of you know what your starting calories were. And things play into that number. Let's say you have someone who sits at a desk 7 days a week and never does anything active. They might be the same height, same weight, same body fat percentage, same age, same sex as someone else, but that other person might run 3 days a week and lift weights 2 days a week. That person's obviously going to get more calories than the one who's sitting around. So there's just so many things that play into it. But, and like I said, I'll give you some information of a place you can get some of those numbers kind of created for you. So how many calories should you eat? More than you think. I think a lot of people are shocked. There's some guideline out there somewhere that talks about 2,000 calories. That's like the base. And then for whatever reason, I hear women talk all the time about 1,000 calories or 1,200 calories. Again, if you're sitting around doing nothing ever, that might be okay. But if you're up chasing kids, or you're going for a run, or you're walking a couple of days a week, or you're going to a Zumba class or something, you're going to need more than that to sustain your muscle. I'm not saying you can't lose weight. You can lose all the weight in the world, but you're not losing body fat. And that just makes you a very weak, flabby person versus someone who's actually toned and healthy. How much protein should I get? Again, this is going to vary, you guys. For my particular body type, I require a lot of protein to encourage my body to lose body fat. Some people who have a really high metabolism and maybe exercise a lot, especially are really heavy in the cardio field, they're going to need maybe a little bit less protein and maybe slightly higher on the carbs to help with that balance. This is why tracking your food is so important. This is why I'm not saying you have to track your food for the rest of your life, but you've got to do it long enough to start to understand your body, and you've got to do it long enough so that you can actually paint a picture in your head of what a serving size actually is. People say a lot, I'm eating a lot of protein. Well, how much protein are you eating? Well, I don't know, a chicken breast. Well, is it a big chicken breast? Is it a little chicken breast? Well, I don't know. And then they start measuring it and they realize they're having maybe 3 ounces of protein, when that might be good for some person, but somebody else might need 8. That's a big difference. So tracking your food is critical and like I tell people, you cannot fix what you can't track. It's just like if you didn't keep track of your checkbook, if you never looked online at your checkbook, if you never wrote any numbers down and you were just out spending money, you don't know how much money you have. You don't know if you've spent too much or you had more you could have spent, right? Same with your food. You can't improve something that you can't track. You can't say, yeah, I'm a little low on protein, because you have no idea. You can't say I'm high on calories because you have no idea. And people tell me that all the time. Oh, I eat plenty. I've got to quit eating so much. I eat so bad. Case in point, take a woman who woke up and had herself a donut, and then on her way to work got a Diet Coke, which always cracks me up, got to work and ate an apple. All right, that donut was really fatty and full of sugar. It kind of made her feel sluggish, even a little blah in the belly. That Diet Coke is full of salt, which caused her to bloat even more. And then the apple was full of fiber. So her stomach didn't feel good until about 5 or 6 o'clock that night, at which time she had a banana and went to bed. In her mind, she had tons of food because she felt icky, and she started her day with a donut. So she thought she had a lot of food, but when in reality, she didn't. And some people will say, oh, I ate like a pig. They might skip breakfast and lunch and have a burger at dinner and feel disgusting. But, and you know, granted, was it the best choice for dinner? No, but overall their calories are really low. Their protein is crazy low. Their carbs are higher. So this is why tracking your food is key. What food should I eat? And like I said, I'm going really basic here. What food should I eat? Well, like I said in the beginning, any and all food is okay. Case in point, if you had a donut, if you were tracking how many calories you had and how much protein, fats, and carbs you were getting, you would know if that donut fit in your day or not. Just like if you were going to the store and buying a new pair of shoes, if you looked at your checkbook, you would know if you could afford that pair of shoes or not. You might end up getting a pair of flip-flops, or you might get a pair of stilettos, right? Because you may not have the money for that. So it's not that there's really good food or bad food. I mean, obviously there are some foods that's more healthy than others, but if you just look at food for the fuel and you only have a certain allotment to pay for that fuel, then you'll have a better idea of, you know, you don't have to deprive yourself of a particular item. Like we talked about booze and body fat the other day. If you allot for that alcohol, you can have that and you can still change your body composition. It's when you don't keep track of what you're having that things get out of hand. So when you hear people talk about macros, like when I was talking in the video the other day about tracking your macros, all food is made up of a macronutrient. It's either protein, fats, or carbs, or a blend thereof. You also have micronutrients. That's when you start getting into vitamins and minerals and things like that, which, you know, some foods have been depleted of their micronutrients, but they still have, you know, this is a horrible example just because it makes me sad, but you know, the poor chicken who's been in the little square box and been shot full of hormones and given food that has absolutely no nutrition, but it got really big and fat. That chicken still has protein that you are going to consume, but your macros will be there, but your micronutrients will not be, because that little chicken didn't get treated well. So that's just me being an animal lover. So when you look at food, you have to understand that there's going to be either protein, fats, or carbs, or a blend of in the food itself. And I did have someone question me privately about when I made a comment that cottage cheese is not a protein source. That is not to say that cottage cheese doesn't have protein in it. A Snickers has protein in it. If you read the back of the label, a Snickers has protein in it. It's not a protein source. So when you're looking at food, it's going to be made up of either one macro or all three. So let's say you have a food that has all three macros. Let's say there's a food that contains protein, fats, and carbs in it, right? What does it have the most of? What is it carrying the most of? Chicken is carrying protein, right? Cottage cheese, for example, is carrying more fat than protein. So it's more of a fat source than a protein source. So that's what I meant by that the other day. It's not that it doesn't have protein in it. It's not that you couldn't use it towards your macros to get to where you need to be. But if you're looking at your macros and you're like, gosh, I've had all the protein, or I'm sorry, I've had all the fats and carbs I could have for today. I need to get some protein. You're going to want to look at something like an egg white or a piece of chicken or a piece of fish or something like that. So to break it down, you need a certain amount of calories every day. I'm going to give you some information on how to find that number. From that number, everyone is going to be slightly different on how much of that number should come from protein, how much should come from fat, and how much should come from carbs. For example, I have a girl I was working with last night, and we looked at her breakdown, and then she saw a sample of someone else's meal plan, and they had a much higher carb percentage, and hers was much higher in protein. But the reason being, the person with a really high carb percentage is someone who works out once, sometimes twice a day, because they like to lift weights, but they also sometimes like to go for a run, morning, lunchtime, or evening. So they work out anywhere from 5 to 8 times a week. They do a lot of cardio exercise because they enjoy going outside for a run, and they have minimal body fat. So that person's metabolism and body shape and body condition is to the point where they're doing better with more carbohydrates, versus this other person who has body fat to lose, works out 1 or 2 nights a week. They're in a different position. We need to use their food to start stoking up their metabolism. So she's higher in protein. So I know it can get confusing, but the basics of it is if you think of your food as your checkbook, you're only going to get so much money to spend every day. You're only going, and that's the thing. Whoops, that's the thing. When people are spending money, they're really careful about making their purchases, right? When you only have a certain amount of money to allocate to something, or you're saving, let's say you save all week long because you want to buy the shoes that go on sale on Friday. That's very similar to looking at your meals all week long and saving some of your calories and macros for that beer on Friday night, right? So you've got to start thinking of that. It's not a free-for-all. There's not really good food and bad food. Yes, there's healthy and unhealthy. But as far as bringing in the amount of calories and the amount of grams, you can do whatever you want. You just have to make it fit. So, if you're at the end of the day and you're like, oh, I have carbs left. I have lots of carbs left. Yeah, maybe you have enough to have a donut. Good for you. Maybe that same amount is the amount of carbohydrates in half an apple. Whatever it is, if it fits, it fits. If you're worried about your fats and your minerals and vitamins, and you're probably going to go with the apple. If you're just really wanting something sweet and trying to get your macros, you can have the donut. But at the end of the day, you've taken in the same amount of protein, fats, and carbs, and that's good. This conversation can go lots of different directions. You're going to hear and read things about eating every 2 to 3 hours. You're going to hear things about only eating for certain amounts of time a day. You guys have said it once, I'll say it again. There's a million ways to skin a cat, and there's even more ways to lose body fat and change your composition. The key to all of this is that you stay consistent with whatever route you're on. Like for instance, somebody will try a certain amount of protein, fats, and carbs for 1 week and go, oh, it didn't work. Okay, it takes longer than a week. If it happens sooner than a week, like a big drop sooner than a week, you probably have something off that's not really good. And some people jump back and forth. I did this version for, I did this diet for 3 weeks, and then I did this diet for 6 weeks, and I did this diet for 5 weeks. Talk about confusing your body. Your body has requirements in the fact that it needs energy to live, to function, to move, to think. Give it the energy that it needs through food. Figure out what works best. And again, you're not going to know until you start tracking your food. And I know people are like, it takes so much time. It's so hard. It's so annoying. Yeah, but if you want to know the answer, then this is what you do. Think of like a mother who takes their kid to the vet. That would be me. Takes their kid to the doctor and says, I don't know what's wrong. She's got a rash. She gets blisters in her mouth. It happens every couple of weeks. We can't figure it out. The doctor's probably going to say, you need to start write down everything she eats. Let's see if we can make a correlation to something she's consuming. You would do it in a heartbeat. It's your kid. You love and care about them. Give yourself the same amount of respect. You only get one body. It's super important to take care of. And if you have goals that you want to drop body fat to be healthier, or you want to put on some muscle to be stronger, you have to know what you're taking in. So, like I said in the beginning, there is a online resource that I have used, and I totally approve of it. It is a scientist / bodybuilder who I have the utmost respect for, who with a couple other scientists created this website. And it's, some of you may have seen yesterday in the carbohydrate conversation that we had in a post, I shared some pictures of, what's a carb, how much, or what food is a carb, how much carbs are in it, kind of thing. They came from a source known as Avatar Nutrition. So and I'm not connected to Avatar Nutrition in any way, shape, and or form, except for the fact that I've used it in the past. Avatar Nutrition, for $9.99 a month, which is super minimal, you can go in and create a profile. It's going to ask you your age, your weight. It's going to ask you your body fat percentage. So this is where you will need to get some kind of backup in the form of either a friend who can pinch you with some calibers, or if you know a trainer locally, that kind of thing. It's going to ask you for your body fat percentage. It's going to ask you, I forget what I said, age, weight, all that stuff, height. It's going to ask you your body shape, and it gives you some sketches of people to kind of give you an idea. And it's going to ask you your level of activity. Based on that, and then and then it's going to ask you your goal. Are you trying to put on muscle mass? Are you trying to lose body fat? What are you trying to do? Based on that, it's going to generate for you a number of total calories that you should be getting a day. It's also going to generate for you the percentages of how much of that should be protein, fats, and carbs. It doesn't tell you what to eat. It doesn't give you a meal plan. It doesn't give you a menu, because all it is saying is the science-based fact is You got to get these amount of calories. So much of them have to come from these different macros, and that will alter your body composition. So every single week, you can weigh in / enter your body fat percentage again. And again, you guys, weight, just standing on the scale, that doesn't mean anything. Someone's body composition can change, and their muscle mass can go up, their body fat can go down, but the scale will weigh the same. So you've got to have a connection to someone to do your body fat. But each week, you're going to update your profile based on, what your body fat changes have been. And Avatar, so Avatar is like, I don't know, a fake person, right? So basically this fake person / this computer is going to take how your body responded based on what it gave you, and it's either going to keep it the way it had it, or it's going to tweak it a little. So really your first couple weeks, I don't anticipate anyone seeing a change. Even your first week, you might drop more weight than what you are planning on dropping, because a lot of people, when they first start tracking food, actually eat truly good for the first time. And so you might lose a little bit more than you think. But typically after that second or third weigh-in, it's going to really start tweaking your macro countdown. So what I do is, I pay for the service, obviously, of Avatar. Yes, I'm a trainer. Yes, I understand nutrition. Yes, I know how much I need, but it's nice for me to have the outside source to enter my information and get a little guidance from. Sometimes I argue with it, but most of the time I follow. Most of the time I follow its lead. But what I do in addition to the Avatar is that I have my FitnessPal, which is an app that is free on my phone. So I take the calories, protein, fats, and carbs that Avatar has guided me to do. I enter that into my FitnessPal, and then I track my food. I enter what I'm eating. I enter what I'm planning on eating. A lot of times for me, it gets easier to just eat the same thing for breakfast and lunch, and that way I have some room to, wiggle room on the weekends or at night for food. But I will sit down on a Saturday afternoon and I'll plug in everything I'm going to eat for Sunday, and I'm going to see how it jives. And if something I have planned is too high in carbs or too high in fat, then I'll tweak it. I'll swap something out. So yes, it requires planning ahead. Yes, it requires effort. Yes, it requires tracking. But most good things in life require some effort. So if it is a priority for you and you are not connected to a trainer that can help walk you through this, it's a really good route. It's just the facts of the calories and stuff that you'll get. But it's a good starting place for a lot of people. So again, that's called Avatar Nutrition. I believe it's $9.99 a month. I'm pretty sure from what I remember you can stop it at any time. So if you do it for a month or 6 months or whatever, it's totally up to you. I think for a lot of you that need the guidance, and most people do and don't feel bad about that, you know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. So I think a lot of you will be surprised at how much protein you need. I think a lot of you will be surprised at how many calories you need. And again, once you get that down and you start to learn your foods, it goes so much better. So anyway, I know this was basic, but I felt like we kind of needed that. I felt like we needed to talk about what is a protein, fat, and a carb. I mean, well, we didn't really talk about that. So a protein is obviously like a meat. Typically, yes, you can find protein in vegetables and all that jazz, but typically it's a meat source. Carbohydrates can be vegetables, fruit, that kind of thing, grains. And then fats are your fat sources. So whether it's something like butter, olive oil, avocado, things that are fatty, those are your fat sources. So I will, in the comments to this video, I will share again the carbohydrate graphs, and I will go ahead and add in the protein and the fats to this one so that you guys have some guidelines to work off of. And again, it's just guidelines. It's just a general list. Like I said, if you get my FitnessPal, anything you put in, it'll tell you the protein, fats, and carbs as close to possible. So Avatar Nutrition, for those of you looking for some outside help, if you don't already have a trainer or someone to work with, and let me know how it goes. I'm getting a phone call. Darn it. I'm always getting phone calls in the middle of this. So let me know how it goes. If you sign up for Avatar, let me know. I would love to kind of keep track of your journey with Avatar. You will, as part of that $9.99, you will get some videos to your email. They'll explain some things. I think they even have, if I remember correctly, they have a video that will re-explain that booze and body fat thing. But yeah, it's exciting. I would love to see how people do with that. And so if you have questions, let me know. Comment on the video, all that good stuff, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.